With the start of the new year comes the Lunar New Year, a holiday for families. On this day, families come together, cook delicious food, and have a good time. But 32-year-old Jihan isn't happy. She is an out-of-work freelancer, but most would say that she is unemployed. As she is cooking for the guests who have yet to arrive, her mother is watching a cute video of her grandson, but she is irritated that they are getting in her way and eating the food she cooked before everyone arrives. When she suggests that her parents should cook, Jia's mother reminds her that cooking is the least she could do since she lives at home and doesn't even pay rent. Jia's sister Jaiman arrives with her family, and her mother embraces her granddaughter. Jimin's husband is carrying the grandson, and Jimin is exhausted from the trip and wants to sit down. Jia appears out of the shadows to greet her little sister with an almost fake smile. Jia says she's happy to see her and hands her a flower print apron. Jimin responds by noting that the apron looks great on Jia and talks of her relationship status by saying all she needs to do now is walk down the aisle. But Jia doesn't find the joke funny. She insists Jimin puts on the apron to help her cook with a lifeless expression. Jia's mom is not impressed and hits her. Jia just wants someone else to cook, but Jimin's husband points out that Jimin is tired enough as it is, suggesting she is pregnant with a third child. This is big news for the family, and they start eating soon after. Jia is outside smoking and angry at her sister for her life and suggesting she meet with the guy she knows. She is sulking, interrupted by an unknown man who comments on Jia still having a foul mouth. This man is eating chicken breast in a smoking area, which confuses Jia. The man reveals that his name is Minchial Jin, and that he used to live next door and wear headphones a lot. Jia initially doesn't remember him, but then realizes that he used to be a scrawny gamer kid. Minchiel didn't think he changed that much though, but Jia insists that he changed a lot, and notes that him eating chicken breast in a smoking area is strange. Mitchell explains he is here because his family wasn't happy with him not eating the Lunar New Year food because they had too many calories. Jia recalls that Minchiel is 32 years old, just like her. They used to live in the same building and were childhood friends, but not by choice. Minchiel was the shy kid that didn't get along with anyone in class, but Jia doesn't see the point in reminiscing and is wondering how Minchiel changed so much. She concludes that the city life changed him, and he is now an assistant manager programmer at a well-known company and seems to live a decent life. Jia compares Minchiel to her life, where she constantly gets scolded at home and is unemployed, and is shocked that Minchiel is doing better than her. She starts to sulk again, but Minchiel interrupts her and asks how she is doing. Jia deflects the question, and Mitchell says that he's just been living, and while he thinks he's doing great, his parents think otherwise. His parents have been nagging him to get married and even signed up for a dating service with a registration fee of $5,000. Minchiel assumes Jia isn't in the same situation, but she is. Then Jia suggests that they get married. Minchiel is shocked, and Jia explains that since their parents are nagging them to get married, they should just get married to fix the problem. It would be a win-win scenario. Jia surprises Minchiel and asks Jia's dad for his blessing, and they get married. They go to a tropical location for their honeymoon, and while she is drinking on the first night of her honeymoon, she finally realizes what just happened. She is shocked that she's not in a dream and isn't in another country married to Minchiel. Jia and Minchiel are now getting ready for bed, and Mitchell is searching through his suitcase for something that would make their first night together good. Jia assumes that he is talking about something dirty and gets embarrassed, saying she is not ready. To her surprise, Minchiel hands her earplugs. He says that sometimes he snores and then goes to sleep. When Minchiel starts snoring, Jia uses the earplugs and goes to sleep, noting that Minchiel is very practical and prepared. The next day, Jia is concerned that her happy honeymoon can be disastrous if they start fighting. As Jia is carefully choosing her clothes, Minchiel appears in unfashionable but comfortable clothing and asks how much longer Jia is going to take. He is even wearing socks with sandals. Minchiel asks if it matters, and Jia says it does because she will be looking. Since their schedule isn't tight, they go clothes shopping. While Jia doesn't know much about fashion, she thought anything else would be better. She was wrong. Minchiel comes out in a red and blue outfit with suspenders. His justification is that the colors are bright, so he won't get hit by a car. Jia gives him a shirt and pants to try, and she says they look nice to her. Minchiel proceeds to ask the clerk for 7 sets of the outfit. Gia is outraged, but Minchiel says that since it looks good, he should have several of them. Gia decides to pick out a few new outfits so he can rotate between them. While she is looking, Mitchell notices the swimsuits. This prompts him to ask Gia if he can pick out a swimsuit for her for their banana boat ride. Gia, without thinking, but is embarrassed when she realizes what he asked. Gia and Mitchell finish shopping and are heading toward the shore, but Gia is still embarrassed that Minchiel picked out her swimsuit. She is obligated to wear it at their next activity, and doesn't even know what kind of swimsuit he bought. Gia thinks he bought a sexy one, but that was not the case. Minchiel bought her a wetsuit to match his. To Minchiel, this was the best choice because they are comfortable and insulated. But to Gia, his choice is embarrassing because this is their honeymoon and everyone else is in bikinis and swim shorts. She was concerned that it would be too hot. To her surprise, the wetsuit was very comfortable. The two had a wonderful time on the banana boat, eating and taking pictures. Toward the end of the day, Gia and Minchiel were walking on the beach. Gia wants to do as much as possible because the trip was expensive, but Minchiel is concerned that Gia is tired and points out an injury on her heel. Gia was too caught up in the fun to notice it. Minchiel offers to give Gia a piggyback ride because walking on an injured heel must hurt. Gia is hesitant because of the schedule, but she eventually hops on Mitchell's back. Gia is embarrassed and asks if she is heavy. Minchiel points out how her weight makes it a good workout, and Gia is offended by this. As they are going, Gia feels comfort from Mitchell's back. Gia notices how beautiful the sunset is and insists they take a picture. Minchiel doesn't want to, but Gia says that they should live in the moment. Back at the hotel, Gia is looking at the picture and remembers her sister saying that couples normally fight on their honeymoon. But Gia and Minchiel didn't fight, and they had a lot of fun. But Gia is still embarrassed about being on Mitchell's broad, warm back. This feeling quickly goes away as she sees Minchiel sleeping. She is satisfied with the trip. Back in Korea, Gia's mom made a lot of food and packed boxes to celebrate her coming back, and so she can move in with Minchiel. Gia is apprehensive but remembers that she agreed to this when she got married. After the move, Minchiel presents Gia with a paper. Gia remembers something random about a cartoon theme song. The lyrics were, "Just do it, just do it. It's okay to make mistakes because you aren't an adult yet." Gia is just realizing now that this means that you're screwed if you make mistakes as an adult. The point is that since Gia said they should get married, her life has spiraled out of control, and now she is living with Minchiel. Back to the paper is a contract for living together. Gia is shocked and throws it on the floor. She accepts that they need a contract and they each write 3 conditions. Mitchell's rules are no smoking, don't bother Mouse, and say something if something is wrong. Gia's rules are, don't enter a room without knocking, don't force anything, and communicate if something is wrong. Gia is outraged about the no smoking rule. Not even her dad could get her to stop. But Minchiel doesn't like the smell, so he says to smoke in moderation. Gia asks who Mouse is. Mouse is Mitchell's cat who is currently at Gia's feet. The cat is named Mouse because cats like mice. Gia eventually says she likes cats but asks what would happen if she didn't. Minchiel says that he would just get another room for Gia to live in. Money wouldn't be a problem because Minchiel is serious about marriage. They agree on the rest of the terms and form an official contract. Minchiel adds one more thing. Any party can terminate the contract, marriage, at any time. Gia foreshadows that the contract will bring them many tears and laughs. On the first night living together, Gia decides to not unpack yet and order some furniture. Minchiel goes back to work tomorrow, and Gia is anxious about living with someone other than her family. Minchiel, on the other hand, is not worried and is gaming. The next day, Gia is woken to the sound of Minchiel cooking breakfast. Gia is impressed and decides to eat since she's up. But this feeling quickly goes away as Minchiel puts the ingredients into a blender to make a chicken breast smoothie. Gia thinks it tastes terrible and asks if they are having anything else. Minchiel says yes and hands her a protein bar. Gia is mad and complains that this isn't real food and comments on how Minchiel is going to eat a delicious lunch at work by himself. Mitchell disproves this by revealing his healthy lunch. Gia looks in the fridge for something to eat, and it's filled with healthy food. Gia has a newfound gratitude toward her mom's cooking. Seeing Gia like this, Minchiel suggests Gia go out and get breakfast by herself. Gia asks if that's okay, and Minchiel says that all he needs is his smoothie. Gia has been in the habit of eating with her family but remembers this is a contract marriage. Minchiel leaves, and Gia says she's going to get a job soon and that she'll see him at dinner. The moment Mitchell leaves, Gia takes back her words and proudly says she's going to stay unemployed until her bank is empty. Minchiel is walking to work and gets into the car of his colleague Sang-Yu Choi. He is surprised that Mitchell suddenly asked him to hand in his request to take 10 days of vacation. Sang-Yu notices that Minchiel is smiling, which he rarely does, and asks if something good happened. Mitchell remembers Gia saying goodbye to him, and he responds by saying it's nice, knowing someone is waiting for you at home. Sang-Yu is confused, but Minchiel clarifies that his wife is at home. Sang-Yu is shocked. He thinks Mitchell is messing with him until Minchiel confirms he got married last week. When they get to work, everyone is congratulating Minchiel, and he hands them souvenirs from his honeymoon. But before Sang-Yu can get to work, manager Suyin So pulls him aside and is angry that Minchiel got married, suggesting she liked him. Sang-Yu responds by saying that it was unexpected because Minchiel didn't seem interested. In girls, 33-year-old Suyin's past is now summarized. She was seen as a child genius and just wanted a moderately okay guy. As she climbed to success, she remained single. She is annoyed that she can't find a decent guy. Then she realizes that this decent guy she wanted was Minchiel. But her dreams of marrying Minchiel are now shattered. All she can do now is consult with the Sang-Hu who went to university with her and is the quote-unquote company Cupid. After work, Sang-Yu and Suyin follow Minchiel home to check if he's really married. Then they see Minchiel talking to a girl on the street, just to see an angry Gia smoking. Gia is angry because Minchiel didn't call her when he was coming home late because she waited for him to eat dinner. Sang-Yu and Suyin are skeptical that Gia is the type of girl Minchiel is interested in. Minchiel assumes Gia didn't want to eat with him because of what happened at breakfast, but Gia insists the problem is that he didn't call her. Minchiel asks if he is allowed to call her because Gia didn't like him calling her in 5th grade when he called to play. Gia said that she had to use the house phone, but it's interrupted when he sees 2 people looking at them around the corner. Sang-Yu and Suyin hide, and Minchiel confirms that he is allowed to call Gia. Minchiel had another chicken breast smoothie for dinner. Gia recalls her past with Minchiel and remembers that she stopped hanging out with him around 5th grade. They were close when they were younger but stopped because she was teased for hanging around a boy. Gia continued to ignore Minchiel throughout middle school. Gia now feels bad about being angry at Michael. But before she can apologize, Minchiel sends Gia her favorite food, which is spicy chicken feet. Then Gia barges into Mitchell's room. Instantly, Minchiel points out how she broke the rule, but Gia says that since there's a problem, they need to talk it out to fix it. Gia and Minchiel sit down to talk. Gia starts by complaining how Minchiel didn't get her beer to accompany her chicken feet. Gia gets to the point and says they haven't had a real conversation before, so she thought it would be good to talk and eat. Gia offers a beer to Minchiel, which he instantly rejects. Gia is concerned, but Minchiel just doesn't want to lose his gains. Instead of beer, Minchiel gets water, and he asks what Gia wanted to talk about. Gia didn't have anything planned and is just going to make it up. 2 hours later, Gia is drunk and talking about Minchiel and her playing games in the past. Then Gia fell asleep. Minchiel abruptly wakes her up with an alarm and tells her to go to her room and sleep, and that he'll clean up. Gia notes that she is drunk because she drank the alcohol she bought for 2 people. In her drunken state, Gia asks Minchiel if she can see his ear. When Minchiel approaches, Gia takes his glasses and points out how his eyesight is bad. Minchiel wants them back and pushes Gia against the wall. She is having fun until she realizes that Minchiel is very attractive without his glasses, and they are very close together, so she gets embarrassed. Gia gives the glasses back and flees to her room. She is very embarrassed and doesn't know what to do. The next day, Gia stares at Michael as he leaves for work. She wants to apologize about last night so things can go back to normal. When she attempts to say sorry, she gets nervous and says, "I'm yelling because the cat said meow." Michael is confused. At work, Minchiel asks Sang-Yu about Gia's meowing. Sang-Yu thinks he's bragging, but Minchiel is genuinely confused. Sang-Yu suggests that Gia was trying to be cute, but Minchiel says they aren't close enough to joke around together. Sang-Yu, who supposedly has a doctorate in law biology, has a simple solution. He says that Minchiel needs sympathy, so when he gets home, Minchiel meows at Gia. Gia falls to the floor in embarrassment. Minchil states that Sung-yu said this would help, but Jia is mad that he told other people about it. To avoid situations like this, they added a clause in their contract to keep what happens between them a secret. A few days after, Soo-in suggests that Minchil host a housewarming party. When Mitchell tells Jia this, she is initially hesitant, but she eventually agrees to do it. Minchil asks why, but Jia insists housewarming parties are parties held after getting a new house or getting married. It is a party to ask for people's continued support in the future. It's not required, but it's something that only happens once or twice in your lifetime. You normally want to avoid it because it's a lot of work, but Jia wants to because Minchil hates the idea. This is revenge for making her embarrassed yesterday. The next day, after protesting with Jia about how they don't need to have a party, he leaves for work with a smile. Jia has noticed a few key traits about Minchil. Number 1, Minchil is all about efficiency, almost like an eco-friendly robot. Number 2, Minchil is weak to requests and will comply if you push enough. Based on these traits, Jia thinks Minchil was going to tell the office that his wife didn't want to have a housewarming party. Jia gets embarrassed by what Minchil refers to her at work. Jia starts preparations and starts to regret it. She doesn't know how to cook well and calls her mother for help. Soon everyone arrives, and Jia whispers to Minchil that he should be nice to her. Everyone is amazed at the array of food Jia cooked. Minchil clearly doesn't want to be there and even starts drinking. Sung-yu asks Soo-in if she is satisfied in knowing Minchil is actually married, but she isn't, and has something prepared to test them. Sung-yu starts by saying they'd like to use this time to get to know Minchil better. Everyone wrote down something they wanted to know about him. The first request is Soo-in's. It is for them to kiss. Jia wants to hear the first request, but Sung-yu is apprehensive and skips to the next question. Jia says that to prevent a headache, they should just pretend to be a happy couple. The next question is when, where, and how did he propose? If they can't answer, they have to drink a whole glass of beer. Jia can't think of a good fake response, but Minchil says that Jia proposed in a smoking area while he was eating chicken breast. While this is true, Jia decides to not say anything and drink. The next question is when and where was their first kiss. The problem is, they haven't kissed. Not even fake kisses at their wedding. Jia decides to drink, but to her surprise Minchil says they kissed at 5 years old in kindergarten. Jia doesn't remember, but Minchil reminds her that her nickname in kindergarten was the smooching ghost because she went around kissing everyone. Jia is mad that Minchil would bring this up. The party soon ended and everyone went home, but Sung-yu and Soo-in agree that their actions seem fake. When Sung-yu asks if they should look deeper, Soo-in says no. Sung-yu is shocked and almost gets into an accident, so Soo-yan says that it's okay because she didn't think she could force her way into their relationship. Sung-yu is surprised and decides they should go drink at a fancy barbecue place. Suddenly, they ended up waking up in the same bed together, naked. Will this be the start of a romantic relationship? Back in Jia and Mitchell's apartment, Jia explains why talking about them kissing in kindergarten and proposing in a smoking area is embarrassing. Jia thinks this is common sense but remembers that he's dealing with Minchil. Jia says they should pick another time for their first kiss. Before they can decide, Jia gets a call from her mom. Her mom called to say that Spaghetti Man Loses His Way came out today. Spaghetti Man is a work that started hero movies. Jia asks if her mom watched the movie as soon as it came out, and she says yes. Immediately after, Jia's mom tries to spoil the movie, but Jia ends the call before she gets the chance. Jia's family has a punishment system where if you don't watch a movie the day it comes out, someone who watches it will spoil it for everyone. The competition is fierce for big movies like Spaghetti Man, so Jia decides Minchil and her need to watch it right now. Jia is enjoying herself with her popcorn, but Minchil looks nervous. He says that this feels like a date. Jia is shocked. The movie was very good and they got embarrassed while trying to eat popcorn at the same time. Jia wonders what Minchil thinks of the movie. Little does she know, Mitchell has been following the Spaghetti Man series for 20-some years. On their way out, Jia is talking about the movie with Minchil and realizes that this feels like a date. Then, Jia gets pushed from behind and Minchil catches her in his arms due to the sudden nature of the catch. They ended up accidentally kissing. Minchil puts her down and Jia says that it didn't count because of the 3-second rule and then runs away in embarrassment. Minchil found Jia in the smoking area and made her air out her clothes. Minchil then confirms the kiss didn't count because of the 3-second rule. They then decide to go to lunch and Gia can't get the image of the kiss out of her head. Gia feels like she's overreacting, but Mitchell says he needs to get something off his chest and reveals the kiss was actually 5 seconds. Minchiel suggests they make this their first kiss, but Gia is mad and runs away because she couldn't look at Minchiel. Gia decided to move in with her sister. Jaemin and Gino are not impressed. Then the 13,260 First Gia Summit started. This included Gia from 6 different ages. She explains the situation and thinks that what Minchiel said was rude. Gia didn't want to go back to her parents' place, so she is at Jaemin's place now. 15-year-old Gia asks if she can stay at a friend's place, but that is not possible. Gia's plan works because Jaemin owes her for bringing them together, giving them money for dates, and convincing them to get married. However, Jaemin is not happy despite the gift. Gia and Jaemin start talking. They note how Jaemin's children take after Gia, and when she tries to spoil the Spaghetti Man movie, Gia reveals she already watched it. Jaemin asks what happened with Minchiel and guesses that Gia ran away after fighting with Minchiel. Gia confirms this. Jaemin then agrees to let Gia stay there to babysit the kids so they can go out. Gia isn't happy about this, but she doesn't have a choice. After 2 hours, Gia realizes how hard it is to be a parent. The doorbell rings, and thinking that it's a delivery, she opens the door to find Mitchell standing there. Gia slams the door shut and is wondering what he's doing there. One of the children says that if someone who looks like Minchiel comes, he should be let in because he is food. Gia has been set up. While the kids are eating ice cream, Gia and Minchiel get to talking. Minchiel reveals that Jaemin told him that she was there. Gia protests, but Minchiel reminds her how the contract said they need to talk it out. Minchiel asks why she is mad. After pondering the question while feeding the kids ice cream, which Mitchell refuses to eat, she remembers it's not a big deal since they're both adults. After Jaemin and Gino got back, they left together for the apartment. On their way back, Minchiel apologizes and says he should have thought about it and said sorry earlier. Gia says that Minchiel is only saying that because that is what Gia wants to hear. She continues by saying Minchiel should be punished with a forehead flick. Minchiel doesn't want one due to past forehead flicking trauma. Before the flick, Gia says she's mad because she doesn't want her first kiss to be an accident. Gia decides to kiss Minchiel on the forehead and says that this is their first kiss. At work, Mitchell is discussing with Sung-Yu how Gia is mad that people think their first kiss was in kindergarten. Minchiel is worried about how to correct this, but Sung-Yu shouts that this isn't anything to worry about and explains how he has been very tired ever since the party. Mitchell says that they all left laughing and smiling, so he shouldn't be tired. Sung-Yu avoids the topic and Suyeon appears. Sung-Yu and Suyeon are so embarrassed they can't even look at each other. Suyeon flees when Minchiel waves. Sung-Yu introduces himself again. He is very talkative and claims to have a doctorate in law biology, but it's all a lie. He is really an introvert who likes staying at home, but since he has 3 sisters, he hears a lot of conversations. This made him an expert in reading clues from women. This skill was exhibited at a young age, and he quickly became the god of dating because he matches so many together. But he never had a girlfriend before. After his entanglement in the sheets with Suyeon, he was lost because Suyeon apologized. After Sung-Yu first met Suyeon in college where he was a freshman and she was a senior, Suyeon was very demanding. But now she is just another adult, so they decided to forget what happened that night. Now Sung-Yu and Suyeon are awkward every time they meet, indicating they aren't actually adults yet. Suddenly, in the elevator, Sung-Yu breaks the silence by calling out to Suyeon, but Sung-Yu couldn't get himself to talk about anything and was interrupted by a delivery man. As the day passed, Sung-Yu was still caught up thinking about Suyeon. Mitchell notices this and asks him what's wrong, while handing him a red ginseng stick. Sung-Yu says nothing's wrong, but then comes to a profound realization. Minchiel is married and could help solve his problem. Sung-Yu asks for advice on how to break the awkwardness after a fight. Mitchell recalls how he isn't supposed to talk about the marriage, but also remembers how he can be flexible at times. Mitchell decides to be flexible and says that their last fight was resolved by Gia kissing him. This is not what Sung-Yu wanted to hear. After work, Sung-Yu is walking and is mad that he gives good advice, but no one can give him advice. He decides to call his second oldest sister Yeonju for help. She is a popular romance novelist and influencer. Sung-Yu explains his problem, stating that this is actually his friend's problem, not his. She understands the problem but wants something in return. Sung-yu offers to get her 2 boxes of her favorite macarons, and she agrees. But before Yeonju starts, she asks if the friend Sung-yu is asking for his name. Choi. After realizing he was caught, Sung-yu hung up the phone, but not all hope is lost as he runs into Jia. The conversation is awkward as they make small talk, and shortly ends as Jia says she needs to go and runs away. Sung-yu feels like he recognizes Jia from somewhere. He asks Jia if she is Flaming Hot Chicken Feet. Jia is shocked and stops running. Initially, Jia acts like she doesn't know who that is. Sung-yu continues by saying that he is Yeonju's little brother and listed off romance novels she's written, such as Is It Hot Because It's Summer and Why Would I Be a No for Miss No. He even said he got her autograph. Jia's pen name is Flaming Hot Chicken Feet. In college, Jia chose a major to get a job rather than chasing her dreams. She barely got into the university and didn't enjoy the social life. With nothing to do, she spent her time reading novels at her friend's place. Her friend was Yeonju Choi. She was shy and quiet, but what made her special is that she wrote novels. Jia saw her works and decided that writing looked like fun. She was bored and decided to give it a try. If you like this video, please support the channel by liking the video and subscribing to the channel for part 2. Also, comment below which series you would like to see next. Thank you for watching. See you next time.